Hello, folks, and welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I'm Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. No music today, which always just feels awkward, but I'm transitioning rooms. I wish I had a whole studio. It's just rooms in my house. Transitioning rooms. Don't have the music set up quite yet, but wherever you listen throughout the world, thank you so much for listening to us here on the Big Orange Podcast. Zach and I talk everything Vols every week, and if you want to listen to that on the regular, make sure you go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed, rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts, because if you subscribe, you won't miss any of them when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it is one at this very moment. It is Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and that is when we go live on YouTube at the A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe there also, because then you can come and quite literally be a part of the show. You can come in and comment. We read the comments. We react to them. We interact with everybody, and it's a ton of fun. And you can be one of those people that's in the show. So do that. Subscribe, notification bell, thumbs up. Do all of the YouTube stuff. And I guess I could also say share the show. Let your friends know about it. I'm trying to get the word out about it. I was on a newer podcast over the weekend called the Vol Bros. Those guys were really cool. Had a fun conversation. Go find their YouTube channel. They got great stuff. They are literal brothers. It's not just that they're bros, like me and Zach, but they are quite literally brothers. And go check it out. But anywho, at Charlie_Burris, at Zach TNT, at A to Z Sports, A to Z Sports.com for all this other we write on the internet. And finally, before we kick things off, got to tell you about the unbelievable sponsors that keep the show running. They're right there, right underneath me and Zach on the YouTube video. Superbook Sports, no better place to wager on your favorite sports than Superbook Sports. Go to superbook.com, download the app today. Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey from Lockstill Distillery. Make your own luck, just like Tennessee football's fast-paced Rattle and Snap offense with Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey. Omaha Steaks. Get $20 off your order of perfectly aged steaks, juicy burgers, decadent desserts with promo code VOLS. That is VOLS, Omaha Steaks. And finally, Farm Bureau Health Plans for better coverage, better rates, better service. FBHP.com/ATOZ. Thank you. To everybody who's tuning in. Oh, Big Ten Jeff's already in the comments. His flight back home, I believe he's in Europe, Big Ten Jeff. So, sure, you can come hang out with us on your flight back from Europe, Jeff. But Zach, you are actually here in America, not a trader like Jeff going over to Europe. What's up, man?
Just trying to get over this weekend disappointment that Vols baseball gave us after we talked them up all last week and go down to Athens and get beat by Georgia. There's not a worse team to get beat by than Georgia. So trying to feel my way through that on this Monday.
I'm sorry to any and all fans that had to go down there and get barked at. That's always just the absolute worst, especially after last week when we talked about how much Georgia fans just truly suck. That was tough. That was tough, especially after the Friday night win. Was really encouraged. Just kind of went like, all right, Tennessee, they still got it a little bit. I won 9 in a row, and then dropped the next 2. Really weren't all that competitive in the next 2. Some really disappointing.
Is that karma? Is that our fault for? Is that our fault for talking so much trash about Georgia fans?
Maybe,
whatever. I'd still do it.
Yeah, exactly. Who cares? Because really, we spent Friday just dunking on Alabama and their baseball coach getting fired. But actually, Alabama went and beat Vandy over the weekend. I think it was at Alabama, so a little bit of an easier environment than Tennessee was in Athens. But yeah, weird situation.
I think Mississippi State was the only team that did not win it home. Was that right? No, I can't. I felt like they were. Maybe
they got swept by Arkansas.
Yeah,
I saw that.
It was a weird weekend. I think LSU dropped their series too, didn't they? And then they fell out of the number 1 spot. Wake Forest is up there now.
Yes, that is true. Interesting times in college baseball. We're going to talk about it near closer to the end of the show and about with the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament coming up, where exactly Tennessee baseball is at. But for the bulk of today's show, it's going to be all about football. It's been a bunch of football news. There really hasn't been a whole lot else. Softball won an SEC championship. We're going to talk about that. But outside of that, recruiting It's going to be a decent chunk about recruiting, but then there's also been some odds and ends with the football team, some things that some reporters said maybe. We honestly, Zach and I haven't exactly decided what we're going to talk about yet. We sort of have a list, and we're like, we'll play it by ear, because there was actually a decent chunk of stuff to talk about with the Tennessee football team, and that's what the show is going to be about tonight. But we're going to dive in first with the commitment of Kellen Lindstrom, a 4-star. Everybody can calm down. Everybody freaking out every time a 3-star kid commits to Tennessee. And, we're still 3-star you. Oh, no. Well, a 4-star committed to Tennessee over the weekend. And we'll talk about that right after I tell you about our amazing sponsor, Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey. I don't have the bottle with me. I got my props, but it's in the other room. Like I said, I'm transitioning between places, but few things go better with a Tennessee Sports victory than an awesome whiskey. And if you watched the game day show with me in Crompton, you saw plenty of Rattle and Snap flowing during this past football season after all of those amazing wins. And Log Still Distillery has released a new Tennessee whiskey product line called Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey, named after a long-forgotten game of chance. It is a whiskey for those who make their own luck. There's a 4-year and an 8-year version. If you look down in the corner on YouTube, that's the 4-year version. They're both incredibly tasty and perfect in cocktails or just for drinking neat in a glass. You can find Rattle and Snap across the state of Tennessee, but also in Kentucky, Indiana, and Mississippi. Run and don't walk to go get yourself some. That is Rattle and Snap Tennessee Select Straight Whiskey. And now to recruiting. Tennessee grabs up 4-star defensive lineman Kellen Lindstrom from Springfield, Missouri. This is an interesting pickup. He is a 4-star on every service except 247. The 247 composite, he's a 4-star, but 247 itself ranks him as a 3-star. But according to the composite, the number 27 defensive lineman, the number 7 player from the state of Missouri, and an exciting pickup as always because of the way Tennessee plays football. But to get a guy on defense is always really nice. What do you think of this one, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got to get load up on these defensive linemen and have a chance to compete in the ACC. It's the type of player you're going to have. That's what kept Tennessee out of the playoff last year was defense. That's why they lost to South Carolina and they weren't in that Final Four. If they have a quality defense, play well that night, they're in the playoff. Who knows what happens? Although it's hard to see anyone beating Georgia last season. But I mean, yeah, you got to get these guys. Who knows how it pans out? He's a 4-star talented guy. Those are the type of guys you got to load up on, and then you got to develop them. Garner doesn't want to develop these guys, so you got to feel pretty good about once you get them on campus that they're going to produce. Not like the Tennessee of old where 4- and 5-star guys came in 2014, 2015, 2016, and a lot of them kind of fizzled out and didn't really progress because they weren't developed at Tennessee. And I think that reputation is changing, as you saw in the NFL draft this past or late last month, especially with Byron Young, going fairly high there, especially with his story showing up at Tennessee the way he did. I know he was recruited by Jeremy Pruitt, but really it's this staff is the one that developed him and got him to where he is, helped him kind of unlock that talent. So you got to feel good about Lindstrom's possibility of contributing at a high level for Tennessee. Obviously, you got to go prove it first, but the fact that they went to Missouri, beat out Oklahoma for this kid, which is another intriguing storyline, I think, in its own. Josh Heupel's probably not going to have to go up against Oklahoma head-to-head a lot, but he went head-to-head with them with his alma mater, got this kid. He's going head-to-head with them for a 5-star as well. I mean, it's between Oklahoma and Tennessee for Williams Winery. Heupel's showing, not backing down and not showing that that's a problem for him. He can go up against Oklahoma and do whatever he has to do to close the deal.
Yeah, that's exciting. And so many people have had that talking point of is Josh Heupel, does he still have feelings for Oklahoma? Is this and that? Obviously, that's not really going to come into play here, but I would guess in this case, it's probably got to feel good to get a win over Oklahoma like that.
I think so.
Tennessee can't play them on the football field quite yet. They're not in the SEC yet, but just to have that, I feel like you've heard more that there's kind of bad blood between Heupel and Oklahoma than there is any kind of love between Heupel and Oklahoma. So that's nice. But just to get that win over a program that, at least before this newest coach showed up, was a power. It's not, from his first year, it's not looking so hot. But still, I mean, they are a recruiting machine. And so I think this is really good. Solid pickup. And I like what I see from this kid. And just just to get wins like this that kind of get you believing more and more in what Heupel is doing, and you take away any of that criticism that obviously annoys all of us, where it's like, oh, it's just 3 stars, just 3 stars. Well, here's your 4-star. Everybody, calm down. It's gonna be okay. And I think the main thing that I wanted to talk about from this was where Tennessee is at right now in comparison to the rest of the SEC. I think is an interesting talking point because they are ninth in the nation. They are behind a few SEC teams, and they're SEC teams where I would throw it to you, Zach, and say, is this concerning at all? We love this pickup. Great pickup. And honestly, so far, I really like this class that Tennessee is putting together. But you're behind Georgia and Alabama. That's not surprising at all. At number 4 in America right now, with only 8 recruits, one of them is a 5-star, 6 4-stars, according to On3, is Florida. Then at 6 nationally is South Carolina with 8 4-stars. And then Tennessee comes in at 9th with 6 4-star players. You're behind South Carolina and Florida at the moment. Obviously, you can finish really strong. Doesn't really matter. But at this moment, any concern at all that you're behind essentially your 2 biggest SEC East rivals outside of Georgia?
No, I don't think you can be too concerned yet. I think we learned last year when Tennessee spent most of the recruiting cycle in the top 5 and then fell to around 10. It's where class finishes. That's what matters. Obviously, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, they're all right there, kind of in that same range. I mean, 24/7 Sports has a little different. They have them 9, 10, 11 with South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida. So they're all kind of pretty much in that same range. You don't want to finish below South Carolina. Definitely not after what happened last fall. You do have to finish above them, significantly higher than them, I would say. But I don't think it's anywhere close to time yet to panic about that. I mean, neither class is even halfway full yet. I mean, they both have about 10 or 11 commits, so a long way to go. South Carolina's class propped up a little bit by that 5-star. That helps them quite a bit. Tennessee's going to hope to land. Talked about Williams Nwaneri. Hopefully you land him. That gives your class a little bit of a boost. Some others out there too, they're chasing down. So we'll wait and see where it pans out. So I'm not too concerned yet. If it's November, December, getting in almost signing, that's a little different then.
Exactly. That's essentially how I feel. I don't put really any stock in these rankings at this point because somebody said it in the comments already. Let's see. Mr. Jones, he said, people forget Nathan Laycock was a low 3-star before jumping to a high 4-star last year. Heupel just gets them in early. I think you're definitely going to have some elements of that in this class, and you'll climb up a little bit there. And, you start there and project out to some of the dudes you potentially have on the line coming up. There are some 5-stars that Tennessee is in on. You mentioned it there, Williams Nwaneri, and he's not the only one. And so this class could come together really nicely, and it's just not over yet. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Nobody freak out for multiple reasons. Don't freak out because of the 3-stars, and don't freak out because South Carolina is leading quite yet. That's what I would say. And it's just going to take time. Oh, we have our boss here in the comments, Austin Stanley. He says, Charlie has already quoted Taylor Swift twice. You need to calm down and Bad Blood. I did say you need to calm down. I'm not going to act like I know Taylor Swift songs too much with Bad Blood. But he asks, were you in Nashville this weekend? Thankfully, I was not.
Yeah, were you out there till, what was it, like 2 a.m. last night? Is that what people were saying?
Because they got hit by like a monsoon in downtown Nashville last night, and the concert got delayed.
Say what you will about Taylor Swift. I mean, to go out there and still perform that late into the night, I mean, that's delivering for your fans.
Absolutely.
Gotta respect that.
I heard it was good. So congratulations to everybody who spent what I heard was like a freaking mint to go to that concert. Yeah, God bless you. Whatever you do what you want with your money. But I mean, somebody told me their friends bought tickets to that for like $750 a piece. $1,500 to go see Taylor Swift? No, thank you. No, thank you to see anybody. I mean, who?
Yeah, that's pretty upset. Yeah, that's a pretty unreal amount.
Yeah, $750. It would have to be the reanimated corpse of Frank Sinatra. I mean, I don't know, like who would I go see for that amount of money? Like, man. But more power to everybody that did. And I saw Mark Nagy was out there, our media friend,
He
and
was
he
also at a Morgan Wallen concert that got canceled
yeah.
in Oxford. So I can't imagine what kind of money he dropped on those two sets of tickets. I'm guessing he got a refund for the Morgan Wallen one, and since that was sort of before I think he was set to go on stage. But those
Yeah,
tickets are, I think, equally as expensive.
for sure. They were both in football stadiums because that's how huge all those guys are now.
Is Mr. Jones trying to throw a rumor out here, a salacious Taylor Swift Joe Milton rumor?
Did we hear the rumor that Taylor Swift was dating Joe Milton? Taylor Swift has dated the Gambit. My wife keeps me up on a little bit of that, so
There'll be a
she's
Joe
been
Milton song soon if that's true.
exactly if if she writes a song about Tennessee football, you'll know who it was about. Um, anywho, as far as recruiting goes, and the latest news, we have another tidbit that we're going to talk about in just a second. But was there any other thoughts with this Lindstrom commit or anything coming up, Zach?
I'm really intrigued about that battle for Williams Mary because the Oklahoma connection. His high school coach was teammates with Josh Harrell at Oklahoma. He's also from Missouri, so going to Missouri and getting to 4-star, 5-star player, that would two of the biggest recruits in that state, kind of pulling them out of Missouri's backyard would be kind of hilarious, just because of Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz and his extension and the disaster that has the potential to be out there. I think that would be an interesting story, but really just going up against, his alma mater and one of his teammates. Where does his former teammate guide this kid? Hopefully he just lets him decide on his own, whether that's Oklahoma, Tennessee, whatever he wants to do. That's kind of the way it should be for any high school kid. But I think human nature is to maybe subconsciously push him in one direction or the other. Does he go with his former teammate in Heupel, who he clearly knows very well, or Oklahoma, his alma mater, where it's a lot of people that he didn't play under, a lot of people maybe he doesn't know?
It will
So
be
we'll
really
see how that one.
interesting. You have some conflicting narratives out there too. You had Steve Wiltfong going on a show for 247 Sports and saying that Tennessee is the leader for him, or he said the team to beat, I believe was his exact words. But then on the On3 recruiting prediction machine, you have Oklahoma at an 85% chance to get Winery. And then on 247 Sports, you have one crystal ball prediction from back in March for him to go to Oklahoma. I wouldn't put much stock in that, but we'll see. That's going to be a really, really big one. That's a class changer, to get a kid like that. It's a kid that you can recruit other kids based on recruiting that one. So,
well, I mean, Josh Heupel said he wants to play elite defense. If you're going to play elite defense in the SEC, you got to have 5-star dudes, and you got to land that kid. If you're in the mix for him, and you're going up against Oklahoma, you're not even going up against Georgia or Alabama really for that kid. You have to win that battle, especially them coming off a 6-7 season. Jury's kind of still out on Brent Venables if he's going to be the guy out there in Norman, and I don't want to cast doubt on his ability to succeed out there just yet. First year coach, had been a long time coordinator. We'll see how it plays out for him. But at this point where Tennessee's at and where Oklahoma's at, crazy that we're even saying it like this, because 2 years ago we would have never framed this conversation this way. But it's true. If you're going 11-2, you have to win that battle,
without a doubt. So we'll see what happens. But we're going to move on to one other recruiting note that is about a big time commit that Tennessee already has in JJ Harrell. He tweets out this week, or I guess it was over the weekend, maybe a couple days ago, that
Friday.
his recruitment so it was Friday. His recruitment is open, and yet he's still committed to Tennessee. So what is the deal there? We're going to talk about it right after I tell you about our next sponsor, Superbook Sports. Make 2023 the year that you beat Vegas. Make it all count this spring with Superbook Sports. Superbook Sports is the best wagering app around, with a direct line to experienced bookmakers behind the counter in Las Vegas. Plus, get a $250 bonus when you sign up, deposit, and wager in the same day. Don't let spring pass you by without winning money with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. That is Superbook Sports. Also, don't be like Alabama's baseball coach and try to cheat your way to a win. on any betting apps because then you will lose your job and maybe get in legal trouble. But that was pretty funny. I'm not going to lie. Superbook Sports. Support them because they support us. Now, JJ Harrell, big time Tennessee recruit, I believe, a 4-star player that Tennessee has locked down. See the stats there for him. According to On3, he is the number 20 wide receiver in his class, the number 3 player from the state of Mississippi. And he tweets out, despite still being committed to Tennessee, that his recruiting is open. Don't love it, but I'll throw it to you first, Zach. What should we think about this?
Well, recruiting is fluid, so nothing. You never count on anything until the papers are signed, and even then, with the transfer portal and the way you can get out of your national letter of intent, maybe that doesn't even mean much at this point. It really is when you see them on the field. That's when you can count on a player playing for Tennessee or any other program. So, with that said, I don't necessarily think that's where this is heading. I think a lot of people might see it the same way. I would say it's probably an NIL ploy, and maybe that's unfair to the kid. Maybe it has nothing to do with that. He suggested that he just wants to enjoy the process, which I fully get. I mean, if I was 18 years old and I was committed to Tennessee, I would still want to take some visits to other schools just to experience it, just to meet people. You make these connections. Who knows where you end up later? Who knows what coach ends up, at Tennessee or in the NFL if you make it that far. There's all kinds of connections you can make. And it's a great experience you get to have one time in your life. Even if you go in the transfer portal, it's not quite the same as being a high school recruit. There's so many different kind of restrictions. You kind of got to be real secretive about what you're doing, especially if you're committing to a program before you're even in the portal. So I can understand him wanting to go through that process. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But to tweet that out and to put it out there like that, I mean, he told On3 after the spring game that it confirmed that he made the right choice. And that's, less than a month ago. Does much change between now and then? I don't think so. I think it's got to be an NIL ploy. And that's fine too. I mean, that's the leverage that you have as a recruit. That's what you can kind of do now, and it's happening everywhere. Now, how far does Tennessee lean into that? We don't really know how they operate with this NIL stuff. We don't know if they kind of give in to some of these demands. I mean, we've seen players like Tyler Barron after the 2021 season, rumors about him, or he did, I believe, enter the portal for maybe one day, or said he was going to enter the portal and took his name out. That seemed like a pretty obvious NIL deal. If that's the case, then obviously he got what he wanted from Tennessee. But how many of these situations happen that we don't know about? How many times does Tennessee say, no, we're not pursuing that any further? Good luck, be on your way. I don't know. That's a question that we really can't answer, because Tennessee's never going to tell you that stuff publicly, because that's technically not how it's supposed to work. But I think that's probably what's going on here.
It feels like a little bit of a precarious situation if you're a wide receiver. In another position that Tennessee really, really needs, I could be like, okay, you could probably jerk Tennessee around a little bit.
Yeah, if you're a cornerback.
Exactly. Yeah. You could tweet out, my recruitment is still open, and ask Tennessee for $1 million, and they probably need to give it to you so that Tennessee can get some fresh cornerbacks in here. But for a wide receiver, I mean, Tennessee right now has kind of just been just a land of riches for wide receivers. And there's some floating out there that Tennessee probably wants more than JJ Harrell. Now, I would say the chances are that if Tennessee got one of those 5-star wide receivers, JJ Harrell is not the guy that they're going to show the door to. It would be somebody else that they, make room in a class for. And you hate that, but it's part of recruiting. That happens.
Yeah, you can't take them all.
Exactly. And
it's not like he's an in-state kid,
Yeah, he's not. But it does seem a tad precarious, because I'm not sure that Tennessee is just hurting so badly to need to recruit wide receivers. This thing recruits itself right now with wide receivers. After you had a Biletnikoff Award winner this past season, and then multiple NFL draft picks within the first 3 rounds at the wide receiver position. I mean, what more? How could this speak for itself more, frankly, as far as that goes? And so that's probably, just an interesting element to me to throw out there. But I agree with you. At the end of the day, I think it's just a little bit of a, you're a high school kid, you're looking for that attention. You only get to do this once, and you want to be courted by all the teams that you want to be courted by and do all of the stuff. I get it. It's not out of the realm of possibility for a high schooler to want to get attention and to want to have these opportunities presented where he can go to cool visits in different places and do all these things. So I understand completely, but also what you really want to see out of a recruit is your Nico, a kid that you get and then he recruits for you. That is obviously the ideal situation. You're not going to get it with all of them, but I mean, this Harrell is borderline in terms of being like a high enough profile kid where you could probably, get him out there on the trail, so to speak, recruiting on your behalf. But apparently that's just not going to happen. And that's a shame, but hopefully he still comes to Tennessee.
Yeah, if he doesn't, the one thing I don't like about this is that Lane Kiffin is Ole Miss is probably his most likely destination if he doesn't go to Tennessee. Lane Kiffin's pushing hard for him, wants him to go to Ole Miss, and you don't want the narrative to be that Lane Kiffin flipped a wide receiver from Tennessee, because you know how Lane is. He'll celebrate that, put it out there on social media, try to turn that into the narrative that, hey, wide receiver picked Ole Miss over Tennessee. How impressive really is that offense? All those kind of talking points would be put out there. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Again, who knows where this goes? Trying to predict some of these recruiting things is nearly impossible, even for the guys that are talking to these high school players every day off their head. So we'll see where it goes, but it is a tenuous situation, I'd say.
Apparently, it might take a little bit more recruiting to make sure that he ends up in the boat with Tennessee. But looking through the comments, Noah says, the myth, the men, the legends, Charlie and Zach, go Big Orange. You don't have to say anything kind like that. We're just silly dudes on the internet talking about sports. But Noah, what's up, man? Thank you for joining the show. Mr. Jones says maybe he is recruiting for Tennessee. I guess we don't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a possibility. You can sort of play two cards here since you have him if you're in a position.
And it feels like he is. It feels like he's trying to say, hey, it's open. I'm still taking visits. I want these schools to reach out to me. Also, I made the right decision committing to Tennessee. It's like he kind of wants it both ways, wants to, dance on both sides there. And that's his prerogative.
Yeah, whatever, man. You got to do what you got to do. I guess we could make this another segment. I'll stop here. So the next thing that we want to talk about before we move on from football in tonight's show is I don't know how you describe this guy, a character in the media landscape in the SEC. Had some thoughts on Tennessee on a podcast, and we're going to talk about it. Mike Griffith, if you know anything about him, I've had some interesting interactions with the guy, but he used to be in the Tennessee Media Corps. If you don't know, he had some thoughts on Tennessee when he was on a podcast this past week, and we're going to talk about that in this next segment right after I tell you about Omaha Steaks. Omaha. Let me find my read here. Omaha Steaks is rewriting the book on burgers with all new handmade texture for the juiciest home-style burgers that you have ever tasted. Their pure ground burgers are made from single cuts of real aged Omaha steaks. These are truly steaks on a bun, filet mignon, ribeye, New York strip, sirloin, and even brisket burgers. Now is the time to experience the exclusive Burger Perfection flight. Go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code VOLS at checkout to get an extra $20 off orders of $129 or more, plus free shipping. Order today so you can try each pure ground burger and sample all the steak on a bun greatness. These burgers are crafted for a juicier, more tender experience, making your mouth water with every single bite. I am getting hungry as I read this. My gosh. Don't wait. Go to omahasteaks.com. Use promo code VOLS at checkout to get $20 off your order of $129 or more and discover your new burger obsession. Minimum order may be required. That is Omaha Steaks. Promo code VOLS. VOLS. Go get yourself some amazing burgers. Now, Mike Griffith goes on this show. I don't have the actual audio clip of it, but he's asked, who would you have more faith in? And I guess we should say Griffith is now a reporter for Georgia. He's a Georgia reporter, although I want to say he's a Tennessee graduate. I think.
I
Anywho,
have
I don't
no
know his.
idea. I think he's from like Michigan or something,
Is
isn't
he?
he?
I don't,
I
I
feel
don't
like
know.
that's the case.
I don't know the full background there, but he has long ties to Tennessee. I would put it that way. He was a
Yeah.
reporter for a really long time in Knoxville. Um, but he now reports for Georgia, and he is asked, who would you have more faith in right now, Shane Beamer or Josh Heupel? Like, who would you choose long term success? Who we going with? And he just glowed about Josh Heupel and Tennessee, and specifically, a lot of people grabbed onto the fact that he said Tennessee is a sleeping giant. And I would say I don't love Mike Griffith's takes pretty much all of the time. But this one I could deal with. I think he pretty much hit the nail on the head. What did you think when you heard this, Zach?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because he hasn't said a lot of super positive things. I mean, about Josh Heupel, I guess it hasn't really been necessarily negative, but he was a Butch Jones guy. He's grown close to Jeremy Pruitt, who he had on weekly this past fall to discuss, various college football things on his YouTube show. Pruitt, obviously a former Georgia assistant that, between him and Butch, those were his two guys. So he's kind of tried to give more credit to those guys than maybe Heupel at times. So I was a little bit surprised, but he's right. And you could say that we're biased. I'm sure we are to some extent, but you see what's happening at South Carolina. It just doesn't seem sustainable. Shane Beamer's not Butch Jones necessarily, but the whole way that he's building that thing feels Butch Jones-ish. He's kind of relying on some clever marketing, some of the same things Butch did with the media, social media team and stuff at Tennessee, and some of the different things that he kind of put out there. Whereas Josh Heupel, he'll go on and do radio interviews and he'll say what he thinks, and he has a good time with the host, and he'll make some jokes, and he'll pretty strongly talk about his offense and seen the for fight at the when he has to, but nothing too over the top. He's not replying to random fans on Twitter like Shane Beamer does at times. He's not filming these crazy videos to go viral or calling out reporters in the middle of press conferences. Well, except Heupel did kind of do that to Mike Griffith one time when Griffith wore a red jacket to the media press conference before the Georgia game this past season, which is one of the funnier moments of the season if you want to go back and relive that. But it does feel more sustainable the way Josh Heupel's building it than what Shane Beamer's doing down there. And Beamer, outside of that Tennessee game, and then they got past Clemson, they weren't that impressive last season. They had some real stinkers. And we've theorized that the reason that they kind of came on strong late is because they handed the offense over to Freddie Kitchens, let him make the calls instead of the offensive coordinator that had to went to Nebraska. I can't remember his name. That guy was coming heavy under fire from the fans, did not like him, wanted him fired. You let Freddie Kitchens call these last couple of games. It was a completely different offensive plan. Nobody was prepared for it. Tennessee had no idea what South Carolina was running. It was as bad as they looked defensively all season. They boat raced South Carolina 2021 in Neyland. Who knows how it goes in 2023. It just feels like they're hyping South Carolina up a little too fast at this point. It doesn't seem like, they're not a national championship contender. I don't think Spencer Rattler is going to go out there and lead them to 12 wins next season. I don't see that as a possibility. I think they're going to lose some games that they shouldn't lose in 2023. Maybe they win some that they shouldn't win too. I don't know, but it doesn't feel like that's going anywhere. It feels a lot like what Butch Jones did. He got to 9 wins a couple times with Tennessee and then fizzled out. Beamer's personality, he's so volatile that it just seems like at any point that could just all fall apart. He's just he has that very thin skin mentality that Butch Jones had. We've seen it in some of his interviews. When he's talking about which SEC coach he could beat in a fight on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, and he's serious. Like, he's going through the list, like locked in, like, I could take this guy. I'm in good shape. I could outrun this guy. Like, it's just a podcast, man. It's just having fun. It's just a funny conversation, and he's really, going inside the numbers on it. So, yeah, I think Griffith's right, and for him to say something positive like that about Josh Heupel in Tennessee must tell you that, hey, it really is correct.
Yeah, I actually, Mr. Jones, one of our great regular commenters here, he kind of beat me to what I was going to say. I think the main thing that I disagree with Griffith on is that Tennessee isn't a sleeping giant. It's an awake giant. I mean, Tennessee has sold, I think they beat their season ticket selling goal by 3 years, according to the reports around that situation. 70,000+ sold season tickets. Somebody said on a message board they had sold 100,000 or something. Did you tell me that? I don't know. Don't say anything if it was behind a paywall or something. But anywho, which would be insane. I mean, that seems, I don't know if that's even possible, but I think so.
I don't think they sell that many season tickets.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. But I don't know. Somebody in the comments might know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I know that they were way, way, way ahead of schedule there. You saw what happened this season. Overall, there's nothing sleeping about this. You went 11-2. You were a loss away from the college football playoff. Nobody's asleep. South Carolina beat the team that was a win away from the college football playoff. Like, that's all South Carolina did. And I think the main thing that I look at when I look at Beamer is I just see so much of what I've seen before here at Tennessee. You see a guy who he's having relative success. He absolutely is. But when you get to the actual offseason and you look back at the results, South Carolina fans aren't looking and going like, oh man, what an amazing season. I can't believe it. We're going to go and everything's on the way up. We're going exactly where we want to go in this train. It's a train that's headed right up the mountain. Nobody's saying that. The conversation is, you guys think this is going to work out long term? And when we had that conversation was with Butch Jones. I mean, that's exactly what you're saying, Zach. We've had that conversation plenty of times here where we went, yeah, he won 9 games, but like, you sort of put quotes around one. Like he won 9 games. Yes, that happened. Or however, what was it, 8, I guess, for South Carolina. Or was it? Yeah, because they lost their bowl game. I think it was 8 this season.
Yeah, they're 8-5.
Yeah, and he won 8 games. Relatively speaking, hey, that's nice. You went from absolute garbage to 8 wins so far. But you look at Beamer and the way that he's doing all of that there, and you just go, there's something off here. There's just something, it just doesn't, it's not translating. And if they had, think of the difference in the narrative at all, in totality around Beamer, if he had lost to Tennessee or Clemson, either or. I think specifically losing to Tennessee just because it was so shocking the way that they did it. I mean, you could have that miracle win over Clemson. Tennessee went a few weeks later and beat the snot out of them. I think clearly Clemson just wasn't that great of a football team. But, I mean, the way they beat Tennessee, you take that away. What is the narrative around South Carolina football right now? 7 wins. They're getting absolutely lapped by Tennessee, who people really want to compare them to, even though they're not really comparable as programs. But, there's just, you look at those situations and it's Butchie. Every Tennessee fan is going to say that. We all know why, because we were all there during the Butch years. We all just know that feeling. We all know because we were all there. We all understand.
It's like he's trying to prove that he belongs in the SEC as a head coach.
Yeah.
Same thing that Butch did. Yeah, we've seen it before. The thing that strikes me is that the narrative around Tennessee from opposing fan bases is 11-2. That lost by 25 points to South Carolina. That's always the caveat that other fan bases bring up. It seems that South Carolina fans completely forget that they got blown out by a really bad Florida team. Like, they lost by over 30 points to a bad Florida team. They lost to a really bad Missouri team. Or not really bad, but they were 6-6, I think, last season.
Pretty bad.
Not a very good Missouri team. You've lost to Arkansas. You got blown out by Georgia. I don't hold that against you, but there were some losses there that they seemed to overlook, like they didn't really happen, especially that loss to Florida. I think you can't lose by 32 points to Florida and then think that beating Tennessee by 25 points is like that never happened. I don't see that logic in that. It doesn't make any sense to me that it gets brought up about Tennessee but not South Carolina. And who says that if you're going to say, okay, that's not who South Carolina is, they righted the ship, and this is who they are now. The team that beat Tennessee by 25 points, the team that squeaked by a mediocre Clemson team, maybe lost in your bowl game. Well, then that's got to be the same thing for Tennessee, because they rebounded from that South Carolina loss, blew out Vanderbilt, who was fighting for bowl eligibility with their, backup quarterback. They did what they were supposed to do against Vanderbilt. I'm not going to say that Tennessee fans should celebrate that win like it was a massive win. They did what they should have done that night in not great weather conditions, and they went and handled business against Clemson with that same, backup quarterback who will be their starter this year, and Joe Milton. They righted the ship too. Then, if that's what South Carolina wants to go with,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it should be more concerning for SEC programs that Joe Milton was the guy that, quote unquote, like righted the ship there. Like he's going to be the starter. Now South Carolina, still they have the Radler kid. He's going to be their starter this year too. Fine. But that he's not getting the respect he deserves. But that's a conversation for a little bit later in the offseason, a whole different can of worms there.
Did you, I mean, the real touch on that real quick, just something that I noticed during the draft. Did you catch when Mel Kiper was talking about Hendon Hooker, and one of the ways he dismissed Hendon Hooker was because Joe Milton played so well against Clemson? Like, what a just slap in the face of Milton. Well, Milton played this well, so Hooker can't be that good. It has to be the offense.
God, Mel Kiper is just the worst, man. He was so
I
wrong.
don't know how he has that job at all.
He was so wrong about Levis. They had that graphic up on the thing during the entire first round. It was like Mel Kiper's top on the board, and it was Will Levis the entire time, and he went the entire night without getting drafted. God, Kiper's a clown. That's so annoying. But to wrap that up, just on the whole, Griffith incredibly, I'll say it again. He's not somebody I agree with basically ever, but he pretty much nailed it right on the head there. In that, what he was saying about Tennessee, and I think just long term, you stack everything up side by side, and I just think this is better for Tennessee. But time will tell. We'll find out this season. South Carolina has to come to Knoxville where Tennessee is playing for revenge, and may God have mercy on their soul. I'll put it that way. Okay. People have been asking in these comments about baseball. We've had Thomas is asking, Eric is asking about baseball. We're going to talk about it in just a second. But actually, Eric, I will say this. Eric also asked, what's the conference schedule going to look like when Texas and Oklahoma join? I actually saw our homie Boogie Bentley at Talk of Vols made a video about this today. I don't want to step on his toes or anything, but that's a conversation we'll have very, very soon, because I think his video, I haven't gotten to watch it yet, but I think his video said they're close to finalizing that scheduling. I think
it's supposed to happen in May sometime.
Yeah, so that's
maybe
going to be
towards the end of the month.
I would put it this way: when that news comes out, we're gonna have a whole show about it. I mean, we're definitely gonna talk about that.
We do know this, that Josh Heupel wants the 9 games, and Nick Saban would rather have the 8 without the 3 permanent rivalries. Take from that what you will.
It has to be the 9 games. There's just there's no other way around it with that many teams. It just
I think it just comes down to TV money at this point, and then they'll sort the schedule out. I'm sure there will be plenty of arguments in the SEC meetings about that.
Exactly.
So I assume those will be the SEC meetings happen in Destin, usually at the end of May. I assume that's when all that news will come out.
I think so. And hopefully, because I really, really want to talk about it with some. It's all just been speculation up to this point.
Yeah.
I want to talk about it with some.
Yeah, I've heard so many different things. It's hard to nail down just one of those to kind of go with. We really need to wait at this point until we have the for sure, opponents. But if it does go with that 6-3, it means if a Tennessee player plays for 4 years at Tennessee, he will play every single team in the SEC, and they will play at least every team once in Knoxville under that type of schedule.
Yeah, I'm so tired of just having that conversation of like, this person says that it's going to be Alabama and Kentucky and Florida, and this person says the permanent opponents are going to be XXX. Yeah, I just want to find it. I just want to find out.
Yeah, it's all over the place now. So once it gets ironed out,
we will absolutely discuss it. And now on to baseball. Tony Vitello and the boys went down to Athens, and Lost the series. What does it mean for Tennessee? We'll talk about it right after I tell you about Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision for better coverage, better rates, and better service. Go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200 plus locations across the state. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Support them because they support our show. Keep this train running. Now for baseball. You really had a ton of momentum to the point where, and I want to say, was it Eric in the comments here? No, it's Thomas. He said, is Tennessee baseball going to host a regional tournament game next month? I think they were really, really close to doing that if they had won this series against Georgia. And they won the opening game, and that was really encouraging. And you kind of looked and went, oh man, this might really happen. We're going to have a regional in Knoxville after thinking Tennessee might miss the NCAA tournament altogether. And then you end up losing the next two games. Now, you have some home games coming up. And to me, when I look at what has happened with this baseball team, they just kind of stink on the road. They're really just not good on the road. I want to say they've won 3 true road games all season. And correct me if I'm wrong there, but it's something like that, something close to that. And that is just brutal. I would, if I'm going to guess, I'm going to say no regional, but Tennessee ends up, getting a decent seed, probably a higher seed than we probably thought in the middle of the season. And then having to go play on the road, which is a dicey prospect at this point. But what'd you think of the series, Zach?
Well, obviously started out great Friday night. The loss on Saturday, 3-1. Those happen from time to time. I feel like the third loss in the series, that's the one where maybe some decisions could have been made where it could have played out a little differently. Drew Beam was getting barreled pretty well. I felt like that. I guess it's easy to say in retrospect that you take Beam out in that 5th inning because they were kind of hadn't went around the lineup the third time just yet. And usually that would be when you take somebody out in that situation. I still felt like there was enough there that's like, hey, we don't want to let this game get away. Let's make the change here going into the 5th inning, go to the bullpen. Maybe the game plays out differently there. If they don't, they leave him in. He only gets 1 out. He wasn't helped. I think that beginning of the inning started with an error, so that didn't really help matters where you should have had an out there to begin with. But it was hard contact on him all afternoon. So I felt like maybe a different decision could have been made there. But that is baseball too. Like those things happen too. It's always a gamble when you leave a starter out for that extra inning where he hasn't had his best stuff, and you're hoping he can just grind through it, kind of save your bullpen a little bit. Wasn't able to get it done. So that loss doesn't bother me a ton either because I feel like you can make a different decision and maybe that plays out different and you win that game. It's it is what it is. But it does suck obviously for the prospects of hosting a tournament game. That's like you said, that kind of makes that a little bit more difficult. Now you got to go take care of business against Kentucky. Then you got to go back to Columbia and see and hope they can maybe sweep that series.
Yeah, I mean, and beating Kentucky. Thankfully, it's at home. It's in Knoxville, I believe. But that's going to be no small task. I think they're a top 10 team at this point, even. So, it is just nothing about any of this going forward is going to be any kind of a cakewalk where you just go like, yeah, we're going to make it to whatever. I just think this team, they're kind of head cases, and that's tough. Yeah, you got Kentucky at home. You win that series, I think you're pretty much set for the NCAA tournament. But you got to win, I would say, at least one of each to make the NCAA tournament. I think you got to at least win one of each against South Carolina and Kentucky, maybe another one even. And one of those, like you might have to win one of those series. Maybe not. It's hard to say, and I don't want to act like I'm some kind of bracket expert with college baseball. Just reading what I've read about that. But I just think on the whole, this team just don't make them play on the road. That's the key, and that's what concerns me with Hoover neutral site. Might have some fans there. Obviously, you won that tournament last year, so maybe you have some confidence there. Who knows? But having to play on the road in that regional, it doesn't exactly instill any confidence in me the way that this team has played in road spots. And so, what does that mean going forward? Can they pull a miracle? Maybe they can. Crazier things have happened, and the team that won the national championship last year was in just as bad of a spot as Tennessee at the moment, if not worse. And so anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, well, hey, look, I mean, just look at where this team was a few weeks ago, and we were wondering if they're going to wake up or not, and they suddenly do. Doesn't mean they completely arrived at that point. They still have to figure out the road thing. You go to South Carolina, that's another opportunity to figure it out. Maybe they find it down there in Columbia. Who knows? But that you have another chance to get it going before the tournament. Like, everything is still fine. You want to host a game, but if that can't happen, you just got to find a way. So everything's still going to be there for them to go as far as they want to go. Maybe they find that whatever they've been missing on the road, they find some sort of spark that they kind of figure it out again and move forward, and they're just fine. Or maybe they don't, and it's one and done. I mean, it's going to be a tournament just where you going down. Wake Forest has played pretty well. It could be any of these teams that come out of nowhere, just like last season with Ole Miss.
Exactly. Baseball is a weird sport, so I'm just gonna give it a second, just see what happens, and we'll go from there. But Eric says I'm going to watch Jordan Beck play next week in Everett, Washington. He plays for the Spokane Indians. I saw that Beck had hit like 6 home runs in 8 games or something, and he was like player of the week.
Yeah, a lot of the former Vols have been. I mean, Drew Gilbert's tearing it up for the Asheville Tourist. He just got promoted to AA for the Astros at Corpus Christi. He was hitting like 360 in A ball, which it's just A ball, and he's a college guy. But sometimes those guys have a little bit of slow starts, and it takes them a little bit to kind of get comfortable and find their rhythm. Gilbert, with his confidence, he has had no problems. Blade Tidwell, I saw a video of him the other day striking out the #1 draft pick last year, Jackson Holiday. So, I mean, he's kind of on the right path too, striking some guys out. He's in Brooklyn playing with the Mets farm team. So they've, some of those former Vols are doing pretty well.
And maybe tells you a little bit about how much Tennessee truly lost last season.
Yeah, for sure.
Specifically with Gilbert and Beck. I mean, they were just
Lipscomb and several of those guys. I mean, Ortega. I mean, a lot of talent that got drafted.
Yeah, they just had some dudes on that team, but this team has dudes too. They got to figure it out. I mean, one that we haven't mentioned, Blake Burke, man, his performances in SEC play have been brutal. I almost look, and I think he's a piece where if you could get him to turn the bat on in SEC games, that's a complete game changer for this offense, because he's been, I don't want to say terrible, but he has been. He was terrible this weekend. He really was just not good. And so if he could figure out a way to turn it on, obviously he's one of the best guys on this team. And you need him to do that, because you had some other guys mashing it decently well this weekend, and he was just, so many stranded guys. It wasn't all his fault, but from multiple guys at the plate, so many stranded runners, and just gotta clean it up.
Nothing more frustrating than not coming through with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, man. But we can finish with this. Eric says it here. The softball team is kicking ass, though. They won the SEC regular season championship with a win over South Carolina over the weekend. Congratulations to everybody involved there. You know what I couldn't believe? It was the first time they won it since 2007. They've been so good for so long, and they hadn't won it in that long. That was very surprising.
It's how hard it is. I mean, it's a very hard thing to win any sort of conference tournament in the SEC in any sport. All of these kids are extremely talented. You have some coaches that are better than others, but they're all pretty good coaches, right? They all know what they're doing. They all got to where they are because they've had a lot of success at the lower levels and climbed the ladder. It's a really hard thing to do. It just is. I know that's not a popular answer sometimes, but it's tough.
It just is. And that team is more than good enough to win a national title. They just got to go and take it. Kind of like the men's the kind of like the baseball team. They need to wake those bats up a little bit. They went flat in that final game against South Carolina over the weekend, and so everybody just whatever you pray for, say the prayers for Tennessee's bats for the next few weeks. We need all the good vibes, the good omens, whatever it is, to make it as far as possible, because the softball team now is headed to the SEC tournament. I mean, it's the rubber's about to meet the road for them. So hopefully everybody can turn it on down the stretch. That would be great. And Tennessee could maybe win some championships. That would be good. So I think that's it. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan. This is the shortest one we've had in quite a while. 55 minutes, man.
It's May, so
exactly. That's going to happen. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. You know where to find us. Go to A2ZSports.com, the A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube channel. Subscribe, do all the things and all of that, nonsense. And yeah, I think that is it. Thank you so much for watching, for commenting, for always tuning in. You guys are too good to us, everybody. Eric, Mr. Jones, even Big Tin, Jeff, Thomas, everybody, Noah, everybody who's been watching, even Austin Stanley tuned in. I guess I really should thank him because he cuts a paycheck to me. So thank you to Austin. We really appreciate it. And we will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.